Hello and welcome to this episode of Trash to Track. Now in this episode I'm going to be looking at this Hornby Railroad 9F that's been sent in by Frank. Frank said this is a favourite loco, well loved, well run. So I'm going to see if I can fully service it and return it back to running order for him. It looks to be in generally very good condition. There are two wires on the tender drawbar are broken, so I'm going to have to resolder those back on. Very common problem sometimes with these models, but other than that, it looks to be in very good order. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the tender, which is missing its coupling, although I have found a spare one, so I'll fit that for him before I send it back. Because unfortunately some of these Railroad 9Fs do suffer from Mazak rot in the old Ringfield casing that's used as tender pickups. So I'm going to take this apart, clean the pickups and wheels, and make sure that this isn't showing any signs of Mazak rot or zinc pest, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing I do is unscrew the pickup plate. Very good design and reuse of an old tooling. Where the motor weights would have gone, they screw these pickup plates in now. So yeah, very good idea I think on Hornby's part, this one. So the pickups did have a bit of fluff and dirt on them, as I'd expect for a model that's had a lot of use. So these were cleaned off with a cotton bud and methylated spirits. The pickups adjusted if needed, and then they were slid back behind the tender wheels and the screw was replaced. To remove the old Ringfield casing, you insert a screwdriver and twist and it pops out just like that. I'm not going to do anything to this. I am just looking to make sure that none of it's crazing or there's any zinc pest. And you can clearly see the origins of the Ringfield motor in this dummy tender now. The other pickups were unscrewed and these were cleaned in the same way as we did the other ones. And then once they're back in place, I'm going to get my voltmeter just to make sure that the four wheels are picking up to the relevant tender draw pin and that plate on the top there. And as you can hear, it's making contact. So that means that, well, that one wasn't, but it will do. That means that all four pickups are touching the wheel backs as they should. We're going to quickly clean the wheel treads. Again, cotton bud and methylated spirits just to clean the wheel treads and make sure everything's nice and clean. The middle wheels were cleaned as well, even though they don't conduct any electricity for the pickups, but they were cleaned as a matter of course. Tender body shell was then dusted off because there was quite a bit of dust on the model. Body shell clipped back in place. And then the rear coupling is replaced. It wouldn't go on very easy. It wouldn't clip right. I'll get it there in the end, but it just wouldn't go right for some reason. But then the coupling is replaced. I decided to change like for like. I could have put a smaller coupling on this, but I don't know what stock Frank runs with it, so I'm just going to replace like for like what was there originally. So that screws in. I got the screw out my spares box. I just found one that had the same thread in it. Used that. This model's even got sprung buffers. Look at that. And that's the tender, fully serviced, cleaned and done. So now I'm going to focus on the loco part. This is a loco drive model now. It's been retooled for the railroad range. And again, like the tender, it was thoroughly dusted. There was quite a lot of dust on the model. So that was thoroughly all dusted out. And then to remove the body shell, you remove the screw under the foot plate. And then you disengage the two clips under the smoke box door. So once that screw's free, gently pull it down and it will unclip. Eventually, it will unclip and there we go. DCC interface there. Nice motor. I'm not sure if that's a 3-pole or a 5-pole motor. It does have very smooth running, as you'll see later. But it generally looks to be in good order. It's just a bit of fluff and gunk around the pickups. One thing I am going to do is take the gearbox cover off because I want to have a look at the state of the lubrication in here. So I'm going to remove this bit of insulation tape, which is holding the wires in place. Undo 2 screws and then the gearbox cover will lift off. You have to be careful because the actual gearbox cover's got a cast channel in it for the wires to sit in. So just manipulate it off. I might move these wires. They are quite tight, but it will come off. And that reveals the typical old orangey congealing grease that Hornby use on this type of model. So initially with a dry cotton bud I remove as much as I can. And then with a cotton bud soaked in WD-40 contact cleaner, I then clean all around the worm gear and the drivetrain. I'm also going to clean the top of the gearbox cover, so all that horrible grease and hardened lubricant is removed. Whoops, I just knocked the camera stand there. And then I'm going to apply some fresh lubricant, some Labelle 106 grease on the worm gear. When I can get it out the tube, this tube is running out fast, so I need to screw it down quite, squeeze it down until it pops out. There we go. And then I'm going to turn the worm gear with my finger just to spread that on and put a little bit more on, because I had cleaned it all off. Absolutely no lubrication on the model left. Gearbox cover then goes back on. You manipulate it around those wires. Like I said, it's a bit of a tight fit, but it will go back on. And then the two retaining screws are screwed down. Then I'll cut a fresh piece of insulation tape just to put over the wires to keep them all nice and neat. So a very easy model to work on. It should be a really reliable runner because it's got 10 pickups on this model, I think. There's 8 on the front, 4 on the back, so it's 12 pickups on this model. So it's always going to be a very smooth and nice runner. Now to put it in the loco cradle, I put the chassis back in the body shell just so that it holds it better. And then I'm going to undo the 3 screws that keep the keeper plate on the bottom underneath the drive wheels. And then this lifts off in 2 parts. There's like a keeper plate. I just slide my scalpel under there just to lift it off. And then to remove the actual pickup plate, you need to take the tender drawbar off as the screw passes through it. So I'm just undoing that screw there. It was a bit tight, that last one. There we go. So that's like a keeper plate. And there are the pickups. And that pickup plate will come off when you remove the tender drawbar. So I loosen the wires and then lift up. And the model's got proper bearings on all the drive wheels, which is nice. But you can see that it's very oily in there. The oil's going yellow, starting to congeal. So I'm going to clean it all off. And there's a lot of fluff and debris on the pickup, so this is all cleaned off again with a cotton bud. This time soaked in WD-40 contact cleaner. And then I clean it all off the bottom of the model there, and then I'll apply some fresh lubricant. And hopefully this 9F will see Frank another 10, maybe 10 plus years service before it needs any work again. The one thing I did notice when I took this apart was this gear on this axle, on the drive axle, was too far to one side. Now when I did this I didn't think much of it because it's obviously driving, but one thing occurred to me when I've done it, I didn't actually battery test it. I forgot to. So I'm just manipulating the wires there. I have loosened them so I can get to these axles. But yeah, that middle gear was sitting off slightly, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Now just spray a small amount of that contact cleaner and then just work it in. Cleaning all the axles, cleaning all around the bearings, just generally removing any of the old Hornby applied lubrication. Because it does congeal over time and it does collect dirt, so it's best to clean it all off and apply some fresh. Now, it was at this stage where I thought this is going well. That I'm just testing that gear on there isn't moving on the axle. It's solid, so it's not split. But I thought, as I was saying, I thought this was just going to be a general service, quick how-to video. But as you'll see in a minute, this model does actually throw up a very unusual problem. One that I've never actually come across before while doing repairs on models. So once I've cleaned the pickups, axles and bearings, I apply some fresh lubrication, some modelling oil onto the axles with this Fleischmann pin dropper that I've got. Then the pickup plate is put back on after I've put a small amount of Labelle 106 on the bottom of the drivetrain. When you put the pickup plate back on, you have to be careful not to bend any of the brasses. So just hold them in and tuck them in 2 at a time. That's how I did it, starting from the back. Took the back 2 in, then the next 2, and so on, until the pickup plate falls down to where it should be, and all the pickups are touching the wheel backs. If they're not touching the wheel backs, quick bit of adjustment will make sure they do, and that will give reliable running. Now the base keeper plate again was covered in oil, so this was all cleaned off before I refit it, and this only goes on one way. It goes on with that bit that's sticking out my hand there, that goes towards the front of the model. So initially I'll go and put it on backwards. Look, but then realised it's the wrong way, so it has to go on this way. And then that was screwed down, and I'm thinking, oh, that was a simple video compared to that schools we did last week. So I connect up the... I've got to amend the drawbar first, because this was all bent. As usual, the brasses were bent, so very gently I bend these back round. If it had have snapped at this point, I would have soldered some phosphor bronze strip in its place. But as it happened, I managed to manipulate it back without splitting the thin brass that Hornby use. So as I was going to say, I connect the tender up once I put the body shell, once I put the drawbar back on. Give it a battery tester and it's running nicely. So everything's running. That will spread that lubrication through that drivetrain nice. And then I solder these wires back on. So I just strip the end of the wires there, tin them, and then solder them back onto the solder tabs that were already present on the drawbar from when it came out of the factory. So I'm just applying a little bit of flux, tin the wires, and then attach them. Then I connected the tender up, and I put a battery on the tender wheels. I start cleaning the wheels with a cotton bud and meths, and then all of a sudden the model stops, but the motor's spinning, indicative of a split gear. So this model was hiding a secret that I didn't see. So I take it all apart again, and I'm going to have a look at this gear that had moved. I have to take the side rods off, so I remove the crank pins with a 2.5mm hex driver. And the good thing about the 9F is you can just do 2 crank pins and lift one wheel out. You don't have to take the whole thing apart to get the drive wheel out, and then it just lifts out like so. Now initially I think the gear's split, but it's on there quite tight, to be honest. It's not sliding around like your typical split gear. A split gear will have lost any grip on the axle. Now I'm examining this closely. I did look at it under my magnifier with a lamp. I also took a load of pictures, zoomed in, and there is no split on that gear. The gear is not split. It's just worn. I think it's just worn. So I put it back onto the corrugated bit of axle, and again it stopped when trying to clean it, so it couldn't handle any form of torque. So what I do is I mix up a very, very small amount of 2-part epoxy Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to just add this onto the serrated part of the axle, as you see here, and then slide the gear onto it. Now this glue is very good. It will stand torque of running. Now I wouldn't have done this if it was a split gear. It is just the fact that the inside of the gear is worn slightly and it's losing grip on the axle. So to keep costs down, as Frank was conscious on costs of repairing the model, I thought I'll give this a go. If not, I'll order a new wheel up. But then you can see here just how tight that is, because it doesn't just slide on like a split gear. It is very tight. It's just not tight enough. So I've used that bit of epoxy on there, only a very small amount. Clean up any of the edges where it's squeezed out with a cocktail stick, and ensure that I don't get any on the bearings or anything like that. And then leave it to harden. Now I left that to harden for a couple of hours. Now I've refit the axle to the model, and I'm going to test it on the layout. And the only thing I'm doing back here, you clip that front in to put the body shell back on, and then refit the screw under the foot plate. So I'm going to test that gear now, and I'm going to give it some torque. Now most people's layouts are moderate. I'm lucky I've got a garden railway, so I've set up a train of 21 wagons, and it's on an incline on the railway. As you can see, if people regular viewers will know, that goes downwards towards the shed. 21 wagons, mixed makes, even some Hornby 00 stuff on there. Now if this 9F can start that train, that gear is lock solid and there's no problem with it. And as you can see, off she goes, pulling 21 wagons, no signs of slipping, whereas before just cleaning the wheels would stop the drive. So I'm happy that I've repaired that cog. If it was if it was a split gear, it would have been obvious and I would have seen it. It wasn't split, it was just worn. So I'm hoping now that'll last. That Gorilla Glue 2-part epoxy resin is good stuff. Regular viewers will know that I actually repaired an O-gauge 20 with that, and I know the guy still got it and it's still going strong. So the 9F romped away with that massive freight train, and I'm satisfied that we've repaired this model. So despite having its origins in the 1970s Silver Seal range, I think it looks quite good, to be honest, for a 9F. It's a very good budget-friendly model. Sprung buffers, DCC ready, as you've just seen. And 12 pickups. It's going to be a reliable runner, so long as you keep it clean and well serviced. So I'm going to give it a run in the garden just to make sure all's good, and then I'm going to return it to Frank. If you've got an engine or anything you'd like to see featured in a future episode of Trash to Track, or you want me to do any digital work, or contact me for anything, donations, email me at dansmodelrailways@gmail.com. Have a look and get it sent over, and who knows, it may even feature in an episode all of its own. I'll leave you now with some shots of Evening Star running in the garden. You can see it's a nice, strong, powerful runner, and that gear is holding its own now, so I'm pleased we repaired that. So thanks so much for watching Trash to Track again. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye for now.